Do you ever stop to wonder why we sense something when we're alone in the dark? A cold breath on the back of your neck, a whisper when no one's around. Maybe it's not our imagination. Maybe they're trying to reach us, stuck between what was and what is, desperate to be seen, to be heard. Some ghosts bring comfort, a grandmother in a dream with kind eyes, a whisper of perfume from someone long gone. But not all spirits are gentle. I've had a few close brushes myself, enough to fill a few campfire stories. But one in particular, one that started when I was 9, has followed me ever since. I've carried it like a stain beneath my skin, a bruise no one else can see. This is the story of the boy in the green jacket. I was 9 the first time I saw him. It was early spring, one of those cloudy evenings where the world feels tired and quiet. My parents were hosting friends upstairs, and I'd been given strict instructions to stay out of the way. So I hung out in the basement, munching on Doritos and playing Twisted Metal on my PlayStation. The lights were low. I liked it that way. It made the old CRT screen glow brighter, and I liked pretending I was in my own little world. I was somewhere in the middle of a match when the screen flickered. I looked up. A split second, no more than a blink. But I saw him in the reflection. A boy, standing just behind the couch. I whipped around, heart hammering. Nothing. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was a trick of the light, maybe the TV glitching. I resumed the game, but something had shifted in the air. It felt thick, heavy. My skin itched, and then I heard it, a soft, wet sound, like someone dragging their hand along the cement wall. I turned and saw nothing but the washer and dryer, same as always. But something in me wouldn't let it go. I turned the game off and bolted upstairs. That night, I had the first dream. I was back in the basement, but it wasn't mine. The walls were made of cracked stone. There were puddles on the floor, and the air smelled like mildew and rust. I could hear breathing, slow, guttural. Then I saw him, standing in the far corner. A boy, maybe 10 years old, wearing a green bomber jacket, arms limp at his sides. His face was gray, like he'd been drained of blood. His mouth was slightly open, as if he were stuck mid-sigh. He took one step toward me, and I woke up, gasping. I didn't tell anyone at first, not even my older sister, who normally loved that kind of creepy stuff. I was embarrassed, scared I was losing it. But then things escalated. Over the next few weeks, I started finding little wet footprints in the basement. They didn't match mine. They were smaller, barefoot. They'd always start near the washer, trail halfway across the floor, and disappear beneath the couch. I tried to ignore it, but one afternoon, while I was home alone, my mom at the store, my sister out, I was in the kitchen pouring cereal when I heard the unmistakable sound of someone crying. Not sobbing, but the kind of quiet, hopeless crying you do when you've already run out of tears. It was coming from the basement. I should have called someone. Anyone. Instead, I opened the door and stepped down slowly. The crying stopped, and in its place, a voice, low, hoarse, almost shy. "Will you hide with me?" From that moment on, he became part of my life. He didn't appear every day. Sometimes a few weeks would pass with nothing. But I'd feel him in the silence before sleep. in the way the air changed when I walked past darkened hallways. He never talked much, but when he did, it was always the same question. Will you hide with me? I said no every time, until the day I didn't. It was raining, a late summer storm hammering our roof. I'd been grounded, something about bad grades I can't even remember now, and was stuck in my room, staring at the ceiling. And then he was there, standing in the corner, sopping wet, mud on his feet, eyes wide and glassy. He took a step closer and whispered, "They're coming. You have to hide." Something in his voice, something real, made my blood run cold. "Who's coming?" I asked, but he was already crawling beneath my bed. I could hear him breathing, short, panicked. I didn't want to join him, but my body moved on its own. The moment I ducked under the bed, everything shifted. The room around me vanished. The floor turned to dirt. The bed above me dissolved into tree roots and moss. I was no longer in my house. We were in a forest, underground, and then I heard the footsteps. They were slow, heavy, like boots in wet leaves. I couldn't see who it was, but I could feel them, smell them, rot and fire. The boy beside me was shaking. "Don't make a sound," he mouthed. "If they hear you, they'll take you too." I held my breath until the sound passed. Then everything snapped back. My bed, my room, my carpeted floor. But I wasn't alone. There were muddy handprints on my walls. That's when I knew I had to understand what this was. I started looking into local legends, asking around, browsing through old newspapers at the library. After weeks of dead ends, I found it. A short article from 1972. Body of missing boy found in drainage ditch. His name was Evan, 10 years old, last seen wearing a green jacket, vanished after school while walking home. The article was vague, foul play suspected, case never solved. My stomach dropped. I had to know more. The nightmares changed after that, less abstract, more like memories. I'd see Evan's life, his mother calling for him from the porch, his little sister hiding in a closet, a man with a gray beard and a shotgun standing at the tree line. I could never see the full picture, just scattered glimpses. But it always ended the same way, Evan crying in the dark, whispering, "Will you hide with me?" Eventually, I said yes, not out of fear, but because I wanted to help him. The final dream, or whatever it was, happened the night before my 13th birthday. I was in the woods, but it wasn't just any woods. It was behind my friend Tyler's house, near a trail we used to bike as kids. Evan was standing there, barefoot as always. He turned to me and said, "You have to find it. The place where it happened. I can't go alone." Then he turned and walked. I followed. We wound through the trees, deeper and deeper, until we came to a clearing I'd never seen before. In the center was an old drainage pipe, half sunk in the dirt. He pointed at it. I didn't want to go, I was just hiding. That's when I understood. He didn't die running from something. He died hiding from something. I knelt beside the pipe, and for a second I could see what he saw. The dark, the panic, the water rising. And then, nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was back in bed. The rain had stopped. The house was silent, and Evan was gone. I haven't seen him since. I'm in my 30s now. Married, 2 kids, a dog, a nice house in the suburbs. But I still remember. Some nights I think I hear him. Just faintly. A rustle in the closet. A breath behind the curtain. Other times, my daughter wakes up crying. I ask her what's wrong. She always says the same thing. The boy in the green jacket wanted me to hide. I still don't know exactly what happened to Evan. The police file is sealed, and maybe that's for the best. But I know one thing. Some spirits don't want revenge. They're not angry. They're scared, stuck, caught in the loop of their final moments, and they just don't want to face them alone. So if you ever hear a voice in the dark asking if you'll hide, you might want to say yes. But be warned, you might never come back. It was the kind of cold that didn't bite. It just settled, heavy, unmoving. In the small town of Wilmer's Hollow, days like this were just part of life. Clouds hung like wet wool overhead, and the narrow roads winding past quiet homes seemed stuck in time. The kind of place where everything was too familiar. Same people, same stores, same stories. But just beyond the edge of Wilmer's Hollow, there was a place the town didn't really talk about. The old field. It wasn't really a field anymore, not since the factory shut down and nature took over. Wild grass grew up past your knees. Rusted metal from forgotten machinery poked through like bones. It was the kind of place that whispered, even when no one was there to hear. But today, someone was. 3 boys cut through the chain-link fence like they had 100 times before. Max, the loud one, always carried the bolt cutters. Reed followed close behind, tall, quiet, the kind who didn't say much unless he had to. And then there was Eli, the youngest, always tagging along, always trying to keep up. They ducked under the torn part of the fence, pushing through tall weeds until they found their usual spot, a flat patch in the center of the overgrown field, surrounded by the skeletons of old sheds and half-sunk concrete slabs. Max was grinning. He pulled something from his backpack. It wasn't wrapped, but it was new, shiny. "Check this out," he said, holding up the small revolver. Reed's face shifted instantly. "What the hell, Max?" "It's not loaded," Max said, flipping open the cylinder. "Relax. You shouldn't even have that," Reed muttered. Eli, though, stepped closer, eyes wide. "Is it real?" Max tossed the revolver gently into Eli's hands. Real enough. It felt heavy. Too heavy. Cold. Eli turned it over in his palms, running a finger along the trigger guard. Reed shook his head. "Where'd you get it?" "Uncle Darren's garage," Max replied. "Idiot left it in his tool chest. I just borrowed it." "This is stupid," Reed said. "We should take it back." Max laughed. "What, and miss out on some target practice?" They spent the next hour setting up tin cans on a rusted oil drum. Max insisted on going first. "See? No big deal," he said, aiming carefully. The click of the hammer, the echo of an empty shot. "Told you, no bullets." Reed relaxed. A little. Eli took his turn, nervously aiming at a distant beer bottle. Click, nothing. It should have stayed that way. But Max had a plan. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a single round. Just one, he said. For fun. You're out of your mind, Reed said. Put it back. It's just one, Max insisted. What's the worst that could happen? Reed turned away. Eli didn't. Max loaded the bullet, spun the cylinder, closed it with a sharp flick, and grinned. I'll aim away from everything. Just want to feel what it's like. He pointed at a half-buried hubcap propped against an old stump, squinted, fired. The sound cracked the stillness like lightning. The birds in the distance scattered. Eli clapped his hands over his ears. Reed whipped around. Are you insane? Max was smiling wide. Holy crap, that was... Then they heard it. Not a bird, not an echo, a scream. It wasn't far, it was short, sharp, and human. The boys froze. Tell me that was you, Max said, his voice barely above a whisper. Reed shook his head. Sounded like it came from over there. They all turned toward the far end of the field, toward a thicket of thorny trees, twisted and gnarled, a place they never went. Too dark, too dense. No way, Max said. That had to be a coyote or something. That wasn't an animal, Eli whispered. That sounded like a kid. Max's smile was gone now. He glanced down at the revolver. His hands shook a little. Reed moved first. We need to check. If someone's hurt. Or dead, Eli added quietly. Max hesitated. We don't even know if it was us. Don't care, Reed snapped. Let's go. They moved through the field slowly, pushing past dead brush and tall weeds, each step louder than it should have been. The thicket ahead seemed darker than the rest of the field, like it belonged to something else. They found him by a rusted wheelbarrow, half buried in vines. A boy, their age, maybe younger. He was lying still, face down in the grass, a small red mark at the back of his head. Oh my God, Eli said. Reed knelt beside the body, gently turning it over. The boy's eyes were open, unblinking. Blood trailed down behind one ear. I didn't, Max began but couldn't finish. Reed looked up at him. You shot him. I didn't mean, Max's voice cracked. It was just one bullet. We have to call someone, Eli said. An ambulance. Maybe he's still... He's not, Reed cut in, voice low. He's gone. There was silence. Then Max spoke again, slowly, like each word hurt. We can't tell anyone. Eli stared at him. What? We can't, Max insisted. They'll say it was murder. You don't get it. My uncle's gun, me taking it. I'll go to jail, forever. It was an accident, Reed said. They won't care, Max whispered. It won't matter. What do you want to do then? Reed asked. Just leave him here? Max didn't answer, but Eli was already backing away, shaking his head. I'm telling, he said. I'm not keeping this. Max grabbed his arm. No, please. Eli, just give me one night. I'll fix it. Fix it? Reed asked. How do you fix a dead kid, Max? Max didn't answer. He just looked down at the body, then toward the thicket. There was an old maintenance shed buried in the brush, long abandoned. They all knew it. No one ever went in, except now. That night, the field was silent again. The boy was gone, but not forgotten. The sky hung low and gray as Rob drove, the clouds swollen with unspent rain. The road had stretched for hours with little change, and the silence in the SUV had become its own kind of noise. His eyes were heavy, his stomach louder than the radio they'd turned off somewhere in Indiana. Next to him, Micah sat slouched with his head against the window, half asleep. Neither of them wanted to admit it, but they were done for the day. Exhaustion had set in. It was either find a place to sleep or risk running off the road. When a faded motel sign blinked into view, they pulled over without a word. The motel looked like it hadn't passed inspection in a decade. Rusted railings, a flickering vacancy light, and dead trees in the lot that hadn't seen water since the last century. Rob stayed in the car while Micah went inside to check for a room. He scrolled through missed calls, 2 from his dad, 1 from his mom. He wasn't ready to talk to either. The funeral was tomorrow. Aunt Tessa had been sick for years, but still, death always hit different when it finally happened. Holidays would feel hollow now. No more family dinners, no sarcastic remarks from the woman who could read you like a book. Rob wasn't ready for that part yet. Micah came back holding a key. Room 14, cheaper than expected, he said, trying not to sound as creeped out as he looked. But there were 2 cops inside asking questions. Rob gave him a look. What kind of questions? Micah shrugged. Didn't stick around to listen, but it didn't feel right. Nothing does today. They dropped their bags in the room, which reeked of old cigarettes and damp carpet, and headed to the bar across the street. The place was buzzing, a local dive crowded with truckers and regulars who all knew each other too well. Rob ordered a beer. Micah went for whiskey. They clinked glasses without smiling. As they waited for food, a police officer entered the bar with a woman in her 20s. She looked shaken, her makeup smeared. Rob noticed the bartender lean over to them in a corner booth and start asking questions. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but the cop's posture was tight and the girl looked ready to burst into tears. Rob nudged Micah and nodded toward them. Think they were at the motel. Wouldn't be surprised. Told you something's off. Rob went to the bathroom and ended up waiting outside the single locked stall. As he leaned against the wall, voices filtered through a vent near the ceiling. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the words stopped him cold. She said he was skinned, the officer said, voice low but urgent. Found in the alley behind the motel. Skinned? The bartender repeated, stunned. Like peeled. She saw something, or someone, doing it. She thinks it was a woman, but said her neck was wrong, like it stretched. Her fingers were too long. Said her face looked like it had been sewn together. Rob froze in place. He didn't know what disturbed him more. The idea of the murder or the description of the killer. A stitched-together face? Something inhuman? He splashed water on his face and told himself to forget it. Girls in shock say wild things, but that didn't help the weight in his chest. He returned to Micah, made up some excuse about a line in the bathroom. They finished their meals, paid the check, and stepped back out into the cold. The night air bit harder now, wind whipping through the dead trees. As they neared their room, Rob saw 2 figures ahead. A man, clearly drunk, leaned heavily on a petite woman. She struggled under his weight but smiled politely when Rob asked if they needed help. "No, thank you," she said gently. "I've got him." He watched her closely. Pale skin, delicate voice. Something didn't sit right, but it felt rude to push. Back in their room, Micah passed out almost immediately, his whiskey catching up with him. Rob tried to sleep too, but the smell of smoke, the lumpy mattress, and the noise outside kept him on edge. Then, a bang. He sat up. Another bang. Louder. "Micah," he hissed. Nothing. His cousin snored, dead to the world. Rob slipped on his shoes, grabbed the room key and his phone, and stepped out. The air was freezing. The hallway was dark except for one flickering bulb. He followed the sound to the end of the building, around the back where the dumpsters were. That's when he saw it. The same man and woman. Only now she was straddling him in the gravel, and his shirt was soaked red. Her hand rose in the air, gripping a knife. Her face turned toward Rob. He stopped breathing. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused, like a mannequin. Her mouth didn't move right. Her neck shifted like it had extra joints. Long black lines curved around her jaw and down her throat. Stitches. He didn't think. He just moved. There was a wooden board leaning against the wall. He grabbed it and swung. It hit her with a loud crack. She toppled over, limbs bent wrong as if her bones weren't placed properly. Rob dropped to the man's side. His skin had been slashed, patches of it stripped like wallpaper. The guy was barely conscious. She was my friend," the man mumbled. "Tomina. She wasn't like this before. She changed." Rob called 911 with shaking hands, kept pressure on the man's wounds, and begged the dispatcher to send help quickly. He kept looking over his shoulder, terrified the stitched woman would stand up again, but she didn't. By the time the ambulance came, Rob was frozen to the bone and covered in blood that wasn't his. Paramedics took the man. Police took Rob's statement. He told them everything, her movements, her eyes, the name the man had whispered, Tomina. He didn't sleep at all that night. In the morning, he stood in the motel shower for 40 minutes under freezing water, trying to scrub the memory off his skin. When Micah woke up, Rob didn't mention a thing. They packed the car and left without another word about it. The funeral still waited in Michigan, and Rob knew, deep in his gut, that whatever Tomina was, she wasn't finished. She'd gotten away, and she would come back